MMA Sucka crew is back. We are covering the main event at UFC 264. My name is Tim Wheaton, joined as always by writer and editor at MMA Sucker, Frazer Krohn. Frazer, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Very looking forward to this main event. It's the one that everybody's talking about and have been for since the second fight between the two men. So
No, it's a major trilogy. We're coming up to Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, the final one. Conor versus Dustin 3. This is a big one here, and you can kind of feel it. All the Twitter sphere, everyone on Instagram. It's clearly a major fight. Am I right? There's a lot of excitement coming in.
yeah, I think every time McGregor fights, it's yes, you got the fight night itself, but you've also got everything around that. You've got well, maybe not so much this time, but you've got the fans traveling over from Ireland. You've got people that tune in to watch him get knocked out, people that tune in to watch him knock people out. So it's everything. I remember the Mayweather fight week was you had the boxing people and the people coming together. That was a huge fight week, or even fight sort of 10 days as it were, 2 weeks leading up to it. You had the open workout in the gym when and then you had the embedded sort of series that they ran with I think it was probably along with Showtime at the time. So it's a McGregor fight week, and you can almost feel it like that.
No, yeah, when McGregor fights, it does feel like that kind of not quite like World Cup stage or Super Bowl stage, but in terms of everybody is watching this, everybody's talking about this. Because even with the Mayweather fight, like you said, those press conferences, we were talking about the press conferences, those were huge highlights. Or like when he the New York thing, when he threw the dolly at a bus, and we were getting live updates on Reddit, we were getting live updates on Twitter. It's like everybody was sitting down to watch this thing. When Conor fights, it's bigger than the sport, right?
Exactly. And like you say, even with the New York, that wasn't even his fight night. Like he wasn't even scheduled. He wasn't even in the country for the event itself. And you've got his teammate Artem getting into it, him flying over. The loyalty aspect of it. Then you had the sort of the team versus team, Khabib's team versus Conor's team, and the fallout from that of everything that happened with Rose and Michael Chiesa, and then everything that happened with the main event itself. That was he in what should have been a big fight week anyway. He then elevated it to that next level, and without even being involved in any of the fights on paper. But like, he's got. I think this is why people tune into every McGregor fight, every press conference, every time he tweets after a fight night. All the media outlets pick up on it. Instagram posts, everyone picks up on it because he's that captivating character that makes you. He's almost like your best friend that you want to know everything that he's doing. Every time he puts an Instagram post, everyone reads a little bit into it. Oh, is he in this good shape? Is he in that good shape? Oh, he's got his whiskey. Is he drinking whiskey before the fight again? He's got. I think that's half of the talent that he has. That people care about wanting to watch him fight. Like I said, either tuning in to watch him knock people out or watch him get knocked out. It's one of the two. It's like Mayweather. That's why he sold so many pay-per-views. People didn't always like him, but he had a style where in the shell he could get knocked out, but not 50 times. He hasn't. So
Oh, absolutely. Being a controversial figure, being a kind of a figure that some people love, some people hate, just plays to your benefit. If you're kind of a heel most of the time, people want to see you get knocked out. And like Muhammad Ali talked about, he learned it from Gorgeous George, because Gorgeous George was fighting at Madison Square Garden on Saturday in front of a sold out crowd. Muhammad Ali was the light heavyweight champion fighting at Madison Square Garden in front of like 2,000 people. And Gorgeous George told him backstage, like, if people hate you, they're going to tune in to watch you fight. And that hasn't changed in the last 70 years of fighting. If people hate you, they're going to want to watch you fight. Now, it's a kind of a weird spot for Conor, because he's coming into this fight with, if he loses, what does that say for his career? Now, if he wins, obviously we're going for a title, but whoever wins this fight is getting the next title shot. But Conor's kind of in a weird spot where if he loses, where do you go from here if you're Conor McGregor?
I don't want to say it out loud, but the YouTube boxing facade is becoming a bigger thing, and he's the kind of guy that he loves the money. I don't think that because he's years ahead of these people as far as boxing ability is concerned. But with that being said, Mayweather was years above him in boxing terms, and yet they still managed to go at it. I think that he might, if let's say for him, worst comes to worst and he loses, gets finished again, even. I think it's completely different if he gets finished as to whether he gets outpointed, even if he loses all 5 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
The cardio holds up. He's gone 25 minutes with Poirier, who many regard top 10, top 5 pound for pound at the moment. So I think he's got a lot more pressure coming into this than Dustin, because Dustin's bounced back from the losses before to Michael Johnson, that flash knockout.
Yep.
The Khabib loss, sorry. And he's bounced back and he's managed to go again. And it feels like a loss to McGregor for Dustin. Yes, it'll put him back maybe fight or 2. Still want to see him versus Oliveira. Still want to see him against Gaethje again, against Chandler. Do you know what I mean? Is it? But I think if McGregor loses, a lot of people will see, well, that's him done now. He's got the money. He doesn't need he's got the legacy of being the 2-weight world champion. The 14-second knockout of Aldo, the anytime, any place, anywhere sort of mentality when he first started. And I think that'll be him maybe riding off into the sunset.
And I do agree with you as well. He with 10 wins in the UFC, he only has 10 wins in the UFC, and he's completely changed the sport. But on a loss, I feel like that kind of, I'm a serious fighter who's going for titles, that mystique is kind of gone. Whereas then he becomes a fighter who, like you said, maybe YouTube boxing, or he's clearly a fighter who's much more going for, I'm just doing money fights. You do a Masvidal fight, you do a Diaz fight, and neither of those fights are captivating, but they will sell, kind of thing.
Exactly. It's like the Masvidal, the BMF. Nobody really, we wanted to see the fight. It didn't need a title. It did not need a belt. It was a main event though, and it's a money fight. So why not? I think the UFC need to step away from all the pay-per-views having to be for a belt or having to put 3 titles on the line or whatever. Like this one isn't for a belt. Is a number 1 contender on, everyone knows it is, but it's not officially a number 1 contenders fight. So they need to, I think, like you say, the Masvidal fight would sell millions of pay-per-views. Nate 3, I think, probably makes the most sense because, well, whether Nate can make it down to welterweight, to lightweight again, I'm not so sure. But he said he didn't want to, and he said he wants fights at welterweight. But we need to see Nate fighting more regularly, I think, because he looked good late on for the last 30 seconds against Leon Edwards, but it's this 24.5 minutes against 30 seconds and everyone's picking him up to be the next welterweight title contender. It's not really gonna, I don't resonate with it myself, but
no, and that's the thing. Like once, like you and I have watched Nate Diaz's entire career, and he's clearly on the downside of his career at this point. He's clearly just a little bit older. He's outsized at welterweight. Doing a McGregor Diaz fight isn't particularly interesting to me, but I know it's going to sell, and I know we're going to write about it because it gets a lot of clicks on the website, right? So we're going to talk about it all the time. But yeah, it's not a captivating fight. That's not even a good legacy fight, I would argue, of like, you beat Nate Diaz, who really cares? Like that doesn't add anything to your legacy other than, but it adds dollars to your bank account. You know what I mean?
And it sort of puts that chapter to bed of he's got one, I've got one.
Yeah.
Now we'll fight and find out who truly is. On paper, do we need to see the Poirier fight again? Yes, he knocked him out. Yes, Conor knocked Poirier out convincingly in, what was it, 2014, 6 years, 7 years
2014,
ago?
Yeah.
But both fighters have evolved so much since then. They're in their right weight category at lightweight, and Poirier knocked Conor out this time. What, in my opinion, the second fight wasn't too close, but do we need to see it again? Yes, because there's still questions to be asked. How's Conor going to deal with what Poirier offered him in the second fight, and can he make those adjustments in such a short space of time? It's not really from was it January their first fight?
Let me double
Can't
check. I
remember off the
think you
top of
are
my head
correct.
when they're first.
January, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's not a lot of time, January to, well, best part of June, really, before all the prep will be done by the end of June. It's not a lot of time. So we'll get to see how dedicated Conor is to making those adjustments,
Oh,
putting the game
absolutely.
plan into
And
play.
Dustin is a guy who's really been able to reinvent himself and get better from losses, right? He had a loss to Chad Sung Jung. He was able to get better from that loss. He was just kind of a tough brawler before that fight. Got a few wins, loses to Conor McGregor, goes on a run. And like you said, he got knocked out by Michael Johnson. Since getting knocked out by Michael Johnson, he's beaten Jim Miller, Pettis, Gaethje, Alvarez. He's beaten Holloway in an interim fight, losing to Habib. And then he comes back and defeats Dan Hooker and Conor McGregor. He's a guy who got better in the cage. He clearly improves every fight out, and you can see his progress over time. I know he's a little bit older, and he's been in a lot of wars, especially Gaethje and Alvarez. Those are balls to the wall fighters. Let's talk about this fight. Coming into the second fight, I was picking Conor. Coming into their first fight, I was picking Dustin. So maybe don't ask me what the hell's going to happen in the third fight. The leg kicks were certainly a factor. What I really saw in the second fight, Conor allowed 18 of 21 leg kicks. He only checked 2 of the leg kicks. He was landing his really good. Conor's game is kind of small, and he shrunk it over time, where he used to be kind of ninja Conor, landing huge amounts of kicks to set up his punches. Now he's just doing feints into his punches. And his game is kind of small because we know he's looking for the left straight. And when he's hiding it behind feints, it usually lands, as we saw in the first round. In the second round, we saw him kind of tire out, and he stopped using feints. And then at that point, Dustin Poirier was outboxing him. Going into the third fight, what did you see in the second fight? What do you see in this third fight? How do you break it down?
I think, even going back to the first fight, I think you have to categorize McGregor as pre-Diaz and post-Diaz 1 fights. Pre-Diaz, no cardio issues. He's going out there against everyone. Dennis Seaver, you got Chad Mendes, he's throwing jumping roundhouse kicks, switch kicks, spinning back kicks, everything. The first time, he opened up with a hook kick, and then he threw a spinning heel kick. Yes, he does throw the odd spinning attack now, but he's much more conservative with his energy. And in the first fight, he knocked Poirier out almost like it was a double jab left hand, but it was more like a feint left hand behind the ear, hammer fist. It was all over. And then the second fight, I think in the back of his mind, although he's got this McGregor fast and his claims to be, on that big Instagram post, he was in the shape of his life before the second fight. In the back of his mind, I still think that he did tire against Diaz in the first fight. In the second fight, he did tire again, although he did go 25 minutes, he did tire. There was points in the fight where he was literally turning his back on Diaz and walking away just to catch his breath a bit. Then we see him for less than 2 minutes against Cowboy. It's not doing anyone any favors. And to be fair, his cardio, I think, did look fairly good. You dealt with the takedown against Poirier, forgetting the Khabib fight, because I think, he did tire in that, but I think anyone tires against Khabib if they're just if they've got Khabib on top. He got dropped obviously against Khabib as well. But you can tell the difference between the two fights, just Poirier and Poirier 1 and 2. He's much more flat-footed. Poirier I watched it, he threw 2 leg kicks within the first 10 seconds of the fight. So instantly he's going straight to the game plan. He's not particularly bothered about finding his range with his hands to start off with. Smashing the leg early doors, getting that leg at least so McGregor's got the threat of the leg kick in the back of his mind, as well as the threat of I don't want to gas out in the back of his mind. He's thinking about a lot of different things, and then Poirier starts. He's got solid boxing. We saw against Dan Hooker, Gaethje, Pettis to a degree, but that was more sort of he finished that with the injury on the floor. But even he got him thinking about the leg kick. Conor knows that he's good at boxing, and then he mixed in the takedown. So I think Poirier is very much the better all-round mixed martial artist, but Conor's always got that equalizer of the left hand. Poirier knows what it's like to be knocked out by Conor, and now Conor knows what it's like to be knocked out by Poirier. But you can tell that in the second fight, Dustin was a lot more confident. He was catching Conor and pointing at him, and they were talking to each other in the cage. It's that I think McGregor loses something when he doesn't go in with that in your face, trash talking style of his. Against Cowboy it was different. Cowboy was realistically was never going to win that fight. But if you remember the build up to the first fight, they were going at it whenever they saw each other at the weigh-ins. They were trying to get in each other's face. This one, arms around each other, thumbs up. I'll give you some hot sauce. I'll give you some whiskey. Almost too friendly. So Poirier almost didn't have he wasn't afraid to stand in the pocket as much. Maybe because he wasn't as riled up. He was a lot more relaxed and calm and pick his shots, stick to the game plan of hitting the leg kick, not trying to take his head off with every shot and work the leg. So I think that's going to be a big factor in this one.
Now, you said something that I really like, and I want to touch on this, that there is the Conor McGregor. Nate Diaz was kind of that separating chapter, and statistics also back this up as well. So I wrote it down here. So Conor threw a lot of leg kicks early in his career because the leg kicks were leading to setting up your hands, right? So he threw 45 leg kicks against Nate, 23 leg kicks against Holloway, 15 body kicks to Mendez. And then after that Nate Diaz fight, in the fights of Alvarez, Habib, Poirier combined, he threw 6. So there's very clearly statistics back it up that he kind of gave up on the leg kicks. And we can talk about do you think that's cardio? He knew it had exhausted him to throw that much power. He's no longer knocking guys out as he did at featherweight quickly in the first round. Is he trying to conserve, or is he just falling in love with his hands? What's your assessment on this?
I think it's probably a bit of both. I wouldn't say the leg kicks take off too much of his cardio, but at the same time, he's using the leg kicks. It takes more cardio to go up high. The spin kick, the body kick, the teep kicks. These are all big movements against, obviously now also, although he's already fought this, and these are bigger guys. Nate's got a longer reach than, Dennis Seaver when he fought Dennis Seaver. And, admittedly it didn't go that long, but Aldo's got a shorter reach than Holloway, and so you're risking you're having to put yourself a little bit more in the pocket when you throw the leg kick, being counted over the top. So I think he's maybe a little bit more aware that these guys probably hit harder up at 155, as well as they have got a longer reach. So he needs to get inside. I do think, obviously we knew that he was planning the Poirier fight, get the Poirier fight over and done with, win, go on to fight Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
So he wasn't fully focused on MMA. He was very much, I'm a boxer fighting in MMA. I think he still does have the well-rounded game, of course, because you can't do all this training for years and years and years and just forget it all. But I do think that he was focused on the boxing too much. We could see he was so flat-footed in the fight, in the second fight, just plodding forward rather than, you've had, even we saw this past weekend with Cyril Gane, in and out, pop, jab out, jab to the body out, straight hook out, always get just out of range. It's like, Holloway, we've seen, how many videos have we seen on social media of punches just flying past Holloway's face? And with McGregor, the Alvarez finish, the centimeters, inches that Alvarez missed McGregor with, able to get out of the way and counter with the left, and I mean it's about 4 or 5 combo and he knocks him out, which is crazy. But he's more elusive, and whether this fight will change because he's going to be more switched on to, I can't sit in the pocket with Dustin because this is the first time I've ever been knocked out. He's got the power to knock me out. Yes, the leg was compromised, but I don't think, the leg was compromised, but the finish came when they were exchanging, and Dustin caught him with, I think it was either a big right hook over the top, buckled McGregor, and he went completely flat-footed and sort of fell back. like sort of sat back. So, you know, I think that he can't just sit in the pocket with Dustin, because he now has the knowledge Dustin can, with a good counter, can knock me out. So McGregor's got to mix it up in this second one, I think.
No, I agree with you. Be a little bit more of a full martial artist and really set up your shots, because where we saw the difference in their second fight that we just had in January, Dustin Poirier is looking for the check hook on the lead. And when Conor was setting up with feints, Dustin would bite on the feints and throw out the check hook. And that was why you saw why you saw Conor landing such good combinations in this at the end of the first round. It's because there's the check hook, but it was a setup, and then Conor follows up with his straight left. And then in the second round, Conor was no longer throwing with feints, so he's just throwing the shots, and then that check hook begins to find its place, and that was kind of the finishing punch, where he throws the same combination that he always does. We know what combination he's looking for. This one was kind of the lean in, where he does the uppercut from the floor to the left straight. Dustin knew it, and he threw the check hook, and it found its place in between the guard, and that was this finishing sequence. So I do agree with you that if Conor wants to win this fight, he's going to need to mix it up with kicks. He's going to have to use a lot of feints. Now, Dustin, on the other hand, it's not as easy as saying, like, oh yeah, just throw feints against him, make sure to check the leg kicks, because he's such a full martial artist. He's wrestled with a lot of great fighters already in the cage. His wrestling has gotten better, and I think for Dustin to win, he's going to have to look pretty similar to how he did in the last fight, where he's setting up all of his shots on feints, throwing tons and tons of leg kicks, mixing in clinch and mixing in takedown. Conor gets up really well off takedowns. He did against Mendes, he did it against Khabib, and he did it against Poirier. And he's going to do it again against Poirier. However, even if you're leaning on him for a bit, and he does get up, you're still tiring him out. You're still wearing down his arms. So I do think Dustin probably is looking to land a lot of leg kicks, mix in takedowns, land, feinting punches. If you're Dustin Poirier or you're Mikey Thomas Brown, what's the game plan going in for Dustin Poirier?
I think, yeah, like you said, I think the first maybe even 3 rounds, you want to make it ugly, make it boring. As soon as Poirier comes in thinking, I'm just going to stand toe to toe with McGregor, that's when it all goes out the window, because like we've seen time and time and time again, only takes one shot from McGregor, Poirier's out, the win streak back down to 0, nowhere near a title shot again. Then, in the back of his mind, Conor goes on to fight Oliveira. If Conor wins that, no one's really clambering for a fourth Poirier fight. So he's got to be smart in this one and take his time. But, you've already done all the hard work. McGregor's going to be obsessed with the leg kick. Open up with the leg kick. If you get checked, do it again. If you get checked, do it again. And obviously you can't just, but you've done all the hard work. He's going to be obsessed with checking the leg kick, dealing with the leg kick, getting out of the way. So then go up high. We didn't see too much from Poirier. If you smash Conor's leg 3 or 4 times, feint the low, come out with the overhand right, or feint the low kick, going for the takedown. He's already got all of the. So he's almost 1 round up already, because Conor's going to be thinking, he knocked me out on the feet with his hands, but he also absolutely battered my leg. He also took me down in the first round. Yes, I got back up, but that's still a threat. The leg was fully compromised in the first fight. If he does that to me again, was my whole game plan out? And he knocked me out on the feet with the, like you were saying, with the check right. So use what you've already banked, as it were, in the second fight with the leg kick. Use it to set up your other attacks. Go high with it. Try and catch Conor, because Dustin's a big guy. We've seen him. He's never making 145 again, ever.
No.
He's barely making 155 these days. So, even if Conor does catch a kick on his arms going high, it's going to knock him off balance. Then Dustin can come down and attack the leg again. In the second round, if you've gone high with the kick, mixing the takedown, mixing the overhand right, the overhand right or the overhand left, it's, obviously from the southpaw, but you can still get the check right hook around the guard because what I noticed in the second round of the second fight, I should say, McGregor was reaching down to try and catch. So he'd obviously it's an adjustment that he'd made in the first round. He was very much just trying to sit into the kick and take a little bit, off it. But in the second round, he's doing sort of big Yoel Romero-esque sweeps of the hand to try and catch. And he, two or three times he did catch the kick off. But if he tries that too often against Dustin's smart enough to come with the overhand. Throw the left leg kick. If he gets his leg caught, or even just feint, so you get Conor bending down, overhand left. It's a risky strategy for McGregor to try and catch the kick every time. Once or twice, by all means, try and catch it, back him up. I thought he did really well in the clinch against Poirier. He controlled him for a lot of the time. He didn't look too undersized. But then again, in the back of his head, it's the cardio issue. Does he want to be clinching for 20, 25 minutes with Poirier when he knows that his cardio, we all speak about the cardio. It's probably going to be fine. But it has been an issue multiple times in the past. So he's going to have that in the back of his own mind. So, the leg kick is an issue, but I don't believe for a second that he never, I'd never addressed a leg kick. You fought Jose Aldo, one of the best leg kickers in the game, before he sort of stepped away from leg kicking us, because in recent fights we haven't seen Aldo kick as much. But when McGregor fought Aldo, a huge factor was the leg kicks. You can't tell me that he'd never sort of trained and didn't focus on leg kick defense, checking leg kicks, turning his foot out, even trying to, even if McGregor in the first round against Poirier, in this next fight, Poirier throws a leg kick, McGregor catches it and takes him down. That gives Poirier something else to think about. It's mixed martial art. It's not boxing. It's not kickboxing. It's not Muay Thai. It's, you can, take him down, like we saw with Leon Edwards against Diaz. Yes, he didn't catch any leg kicks, but he went in and swept him to the floor. It's these trip takedowns and catching Diaz on his heels and manage. If McGregor can do that to Poirier a few times, even if he catches the leg and just takes the other leg out, he's giving Poirier then something to think about.
Yes.
Which I think, if McGregor overloads Poirier with, I've got the hand power and speed, I've addressed a leg kick, I can go in the clinch with you and I'm not afraid to, then Poirier starts thinking, right, I need to go to plan B, plan C, plan D. And then by which time, for McGregor, it might be too late and he's already got his timing down and might be 99. But I think he definitely needs to. You can't just come out and check the leg kicks, because there's only so many leg kicks you can check before it does start to get to both you and obviously your opponent as well. So he needs to mix in, maybe catching a few, but not. He doesn't want to go down and catch everyone, because, like we've seen Romero, they're big movements. The more big, if Dustin managed to get Conor to bite on one of the feints of these big movements and comes with the overhand left, it's flush on the chin, because the hand's down to sweep it away. You've got, there's nothing here. The overhand left on the chin is, we've seen Poirier can knock McGregor out. So.
No, exactly that. And like you said, when he's catching the kick, he kind of just grabs it and then he didn't entirely know what to do. Whereas we see people in Muay Thai, like Sanchai, what you're supposed to do is grab the kick and then clear it across your body so your opponent is no longer a threat to you, right? You're supposed to turn the opponent almost away so that their back is facing you and then you can kind of hit them where you want. But yeah, I do agree with you that Conor needs to be doing stuff that we haven't seen from him in quite a while. The last time he successfully got a takedown was Diego Brandao. He got 4 takedowns against Max Holloway, but this was 2013, 2014. So he does have experience here, but I agree with you that he needs to mix in the game. Kicks, punches, lots of feints, getting a takedown. But let me ask you the big question. So 8 out of 10 UFC trilogies were won by the person who won the second fight. Khabib Nurmagomedov also said, this fight's probably going to look like their previous one in January. This is probably going to go pretty similarly. Who's your official pick? Officially, how do you see this fight playing out? Who's your pick in this one?
Well, I almost want Conor to win because, like we were speaking about earlier, it's a McGregor fight week. It's exciting. And if he does just go out there and get just steamrolled by Dustin again, I'm sure he'll take the loss like a champ, like he has the past 2, well, maybe not the Khabib, but the Nate and the Dustin 2 loss. But I think there's too much, it wasn't just, if you got stopped by leg kicks, then you could say, oh, it was just a leg kick that you hadn't prepared for. Yes, the leg kick was a big factor because it compromises movement, but that's just naivety from SBG to not address that. But it's also absolutely brilliant work from Mike Brown, Poirier himself, to pick up on that's going to be, Conor stands heavy on his front leg. It's like anyone that fights Nate Diaz, hack the front leg, and it's pretty much game over. We saw RDA do it back in the day, Conor in the second fight, Edwards a couple of weeks ago. Now you've got to think that the adjustments that Poirier has got to make. He was being caught by McGregor a lot in that first fight. In the second fight. But it didn't matter as much because he had the game plan. He stuck to the game plan of get the leg, follow with the check right, mix in the takedowns. I don't think Poirier has to change nearly as much as McGregor. I imagine plan A will be much the same. Go out, test his leg kick defense, And then if Poirier knows that he can make it a war, he's had wars with Dan Hooker, Eddie Alvarez. Test McGregor's bottle, he's the fighting Irish and all this. The Holloway fight, yes, Holloway was undersized. He almost knocked Holloway out in the first round, but he still had the cardio to lay on him in the second, third, fourth, always in his face. And I think that's what Poirier needs to do. I'd even, if I was Poirier, almost take the first round off, attack the leg, try and make it boring with a takedown, and see if McGregor will carry on advancing, because if Poirier can stay in McGregor's face, I think it's Poirier's fight all day long.
No, I agree with you. So there's different factors coming in as to what we'll see. It's very easy to I kind of want Conor to win because he makes the sport exciting. And going into a Charles Oliveira fight, I mean, that's an exciting prospect there. Dustin's been my boy. I've loved him since the Korean Zombie fight. I think he's one of the most entertaining fighters in history. So my heart's with Dustin Poirier, and my brain also with Dustin Poirier officially. But let me ask you, moving forward, the winner of this fight definitely gets a title shot against Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira, I absolutely love his story. Growing up in the favela, he had arthritis. He couldn't play soccer, so he went into jiu-jitsu, and now he was been at the UFC since he was 19 years old. He wasn't an amazing fighter, and he turned around and grew into an amazing fighter. What do you see either of these men, Conor or Dustin, against Charles Oliveira? How do you see that fight playing out?
I think it's a difficult one because with Oliveira versus Chandler, was it 2 months ago or whenever it happened, Chandler's got power. Mm-hmm. Chandler's got wrestling. McGregor doesn't have wrestling. He has power. Charles Oliveira doesn't have brilliant takedowns. He can get the fight to the mat, but his takedowns typically come from either in the clinch, trips. It's the same with Mackenzie Dern, elite jiu-jitsu, but her takedowns are poor. It's very much, okay, yes, she's got a lot better working with Jason Perillo on her strikes, but it was very much, our windmill to get into a clinch and trip you and use my superior strength to get you down to the floor with Mackenzie Dern. I think that's also what Charles Oliveira has is, I'll overwhelm you and I'll get it into the clinch and I'll get a takedown. If it falls to the mat in a scramble, I'll take you down and I'll take your neck. I think Oliveira, despite, he's got the most submissions, he's submitted, everyone, Kevin Lee, everyone. I think he prefers life on the feet. I think he's one of these that's almost in danger of falling in love with his striking. But unlike, Conor hasn't got a submission game, let's be honest, but he could have good submission defense. But we just haven't seen it because he's knocked everyone out. Or, he did defend well against Khabib for, one round they didn't really go to the ground. But, in that first round, he stopped the takedown early. Khabib's just relentless. But I think Poirier definitely, out of the two of them, has the better chance of, Oliveira was hurt against Chandler, and I'm not sure with the reach of Oliveira as well. I'm not sure if Oliveira is not one of these guys that puts together big looping shots. He's very much a volume guy like Holloway. So he's not going to load up on a shot and try and come over the top of Conor and knock him out in one punch. I think he'll try and overwhelm him. And he's got the round game. He can mix in the knees, mix in the elbows. The Muay Thai of Oliveira, I think, is one of the best in the lightweight division. You know, the sharp elbows from in the clinch, and he's very good at getting you into the clinch, landing a knee, landing an elbow, a couple of slaps, and getting out, and then going straight back to his game. And like we saw against Chandler, I think it was Rogan that picked up on it. His technique is flawless. You know, he's throwing the left hook and the right hand's up. He's throwing the right hook and the left hand is always covering the side of his face. And, you know, he's always, not a lot of what he does is telegraphed. So you don't know whether he's going to throw a big overhand right or, you know, the uppercut, the hook. And like I said, you've always got the threat of, he might not be the best wrestler, but you've always got the threat of you're shelling up when he's landing his shots in the clinch, and he can double leg you, take you down, and it's going to be a long night for whichever one of them it turns out to be. So
he does propose a unique style, but like you said, he does very much have Damian Maia-esque takedowns in terms of like he just kind of bends down and tries to grab at you. If that doesn't work, his clinch takedowns probably will work. But you know, and his stand-up has got a lot better. And I completely agree with you that he has gotten away from his jiu-jitsu game on focus on falling in love with the stand-up. I've seen every Charles Oliveira fight in the UFC, which has been most of his career. And unfortunately, I would pick almost most of the lightweight top 5 against him. I think Gaethje beats him. I think Conor probably beats him. And Dustin, I think, probably is number 1 at lightweight. For me, I would always say, or sorry, not always, but I would say that Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are truly like that's number 1 and number 2. But I would pick anyone against. I would pick most of those guys against Charles Oliveira, and I really like Oliveira. His opportunities are going to come from leg kicks. He's longer than these guys. He can do clinch into takedowns, but I don't think his takedowns and his top position control is as good as Khabib. And we've seen, both Conor and Dustin were able to get up from Khabib. Dustin Poirier can do a little bit more top position wrestling control, where Oliveira had trouble against even guys like Kevin Lee. He had trouble with that. But yeah, that's my assessment. But it's an exciting prospect, and it's going to be fun. The lightweight title picture is really good. Pretty much anyone in the top 5, put their names in a hat, pull them out. That's going to be a fun. Like any of those matchups are a lot of fun. Now, before we head out of here, we talked about the fight. We talked about the previous fight. What else do we need to cover off before we head out of here? Is there something we forgot or missed?
I don't think there is. I think, like you say, the lightweight division as a whole, you know, this is what, you know, Oliveira's not booked, Gaethje's not booked, Dariush isn't booked, Chandler's not booked, Ferguson's not booked, Hooker's not booked. Makachev is booked, but you know, against Thiago Moises at the
He'll
end
be
of
fine.
next month.
He's basically not booked.
Exactly. So, you know, this is the only fight at the moment that is booked in the lightweight division. It's a missed opportunity to almost not do a tournament style, you know, like Bellator are doing with their featherweight, and are currently doing with the light heavy. The light heavy. Is it the light heavyweight or the heavyweight tournament? It's the
light heavyweight right now. Yeah.
It's a missed opportunity. You've got few opportunities where you've got a top 8 or top 10 that everyone could beat everyone on their day, you know. And I think if Conor wins the Dustin fight, he obviously fights Oliveira. And Dustin, I think, has got to fight Justin Gaethje, because people are forgetting about Justin Gaethje. The tear that he was on before he ran into Khabib. And Khabib on that night, nobody beats him.
Yep,
absolutely
you got
nobody. You know, everyone thought, you know, Gaethje's got the knockout power. You can't use the knockout power when Khabib's got his head on your chest and it's at you for the full first 5 minutes. And then into the second round, it's, you know, it is what it is. But people are forgetting about Justin Gaethje. And, you know, Beneil Dariush is one of these people that I can see maybe filling in on short notice or something and pulling it off an upset, because, you know, he hasn't got the most interesting style. His fight against Ferguson was, you know, despite the storyline going into it that, you know, Ferguson needs to win or he's dropped his last 3, it was quite a boring fight. You know, it was very much, I'm going to lie on top of you. I'm going to strike enough to not have to get stood up, and I'll progress my position as and when I absolutely need to at the last minute possible. But if he can do that, you know, like you say, if he can do that to Oliveira, he's got a hand. We've seen him, that Drakkar close knockout was one of the best knockouts I've ever seen, when he was out on his feet. And the thing, I can't see someone like McGregor doing that. If he gets clipped like that, he backs off and shells up. He doesn't tend to throw back. He wants to recover. If Benny hits, you know, say he fights McGregor, if he catches McGregor like that, McGregor will shell up. McGregor catches Benny, the chances are that he'll just swing back. And I think that would be, I can see Dariush fighting someone like Chandler next. But Dariush, as much as, you know, he's on a tear and he's, I think, like 3 or 4 at the moment, he's not in the title picture. We've already got our next title challenger. You can't ignore Gaethje. Chandler obviously lost to the champ now, so he's taken a step back. And you've got to look with Chandler. You've got to look 2 fights, maybe even 1 if it's a big performance. But I think Dariush is, you could pitch it as, look at the run that this guy's been on. Chandler's come over from Bellator. Yes, it's not a main event. It's a fight night main event for sure, but it's not a main event of a pay-per-view because they're not. Dariush isn't the big draw, but a win over Chandler definitely puts him right in the title picture. You know, a win over Ferguson puts you in the title picture. But the manner in which he did it, the current Tony Ferguson, as it were.
Yeah.
I think a win over Chandler definitely puts him 1 fight away for a belt, or even, you know, even right into the title picture, depending on how this fight plays out. So
I completely agree with you. The lightweight title picture is so much fun. Like you said, Justin Gaethje, Beneil Dariush, that's a great fight to make. Michael Chandler versus maybe a Rafael dos Anjos or something like that. That's a great fight to make. Whoever loses in the Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor, I'm not sure. Maybe that's a Dan Hooker fight. Maybe that's an Islam Makhachev. Maybe a Gregor Gillespie. He just had a really good win earlier this year as well. There's just so many fun fights to make in the top of lightweight. Just whatever. Even if you mixed them up and did Rafael dos Anjos versus Conor McGregor, which was the missed fight we had a few years ago, fine. That's a great fight right there.
Yeah, exactly. There's never anything wrong with that fight. It was just the injury to RDA. You know, that got a lot of people excited because, yes, RDA is a 155er, but he's not tall. He's not particularly, you know, muscular. So I think that maybe gave McGregor an advantage in the fight beforehand, coming up from 145 when he hadn't obviously put on the weight that he has now in the muscle mass. You know, RDA was never the biggest 155er. So that, you know, there's never anything wrong with that fight. It's just the injury prevented it from happening. And then you've got people outside. I looked the other day, somehow Kevin Lee is still ranked in the top 15, despite the fact, yes, he you know, he hasn't fought since 2019 when he lost to 2019 or 2020. I can't remember. When he lost to he hasn't won, sorry, since 2019 when he knocked out Gillespie. And he had a welterweight bout scheduled. And yet he's still ranked in the top 15, but it is what it is. But you've got people outside of the top 15. You've got Frazer, who's the fire's gone out on him a bit because he hasn't fought in quite a while. He had the win against Mark DeCasey, the knockout of Renato Moicano looked good this weekend, but then it's kind of, the fire's gone out a bit, and you've got like Grant Dawson who pulled off the last second knockout in his last fight, and Osman Azatar, sorry. You've got all these people that are not even ranked in the top 15 and could easily give the top 10 a run for their money, I think, especially for Zez. You know, he's got elite stand-up. And I think someone like maybe him versus a Makhachev might be good because you've got the classic striker versus grappler. And then
I agree. I love lightweight, but let's look into the crystal ball here. Right now, we're at the end of June. Tell me what's happening June 2022, 1 year from now. Who's the lightweight champion? Who's number 1 at lightweight?
I think Dustin Poirier.
You're going to say Dustin Poirier?
I think he beats McGregor. Then maybe the end of the year or the start of next year beats Oliveira. And then maybe has a fight with Gaethje or Chandler. booked for this time next year. I don't think he fights too regularly. I don't think he blows Conor away. Maybe I'm thinking probably a points this one, or maybe a late finish, just through Conor being tired with the cardio, and he just finishes ground and pound late on, maybe fourth, fifth in this one at the end of the week. And then, like you say, I really like watching Charles Oliveira fight. It's, if you want to see technique, you watch Charles Oliveira. He's long, and he's one of these people that, judging by his frame, you look at Francis Ngannou, he's going to knock people out.
Yes.
You could just, without even ever having watched him fight, visually, he's going to knock people out. You look at Charles Oliveira, he's got skinny arms, he's got a skinny, long, slender. He's not going to knock people out. And yet here he is knocking Chandler out, But I just don't think Poirier, I think Chandler had a lot of pressure being the Bellator guy going into that fight. I want to prove that Bellator isn't the number two. I want to prove that, I've fought my whole career in Bellator. I've got one win over, one of your hardest fighters in Hooker. And now I'm going to come in, I'm going to win the belt. I don't think Poirier's got that kind of pressure on him. And Poirier just comes in, methodically takes. I think he knocks Oliveira out. And then, like I say, I think, I'm hoping for a Justin Gaethje rematch sometime, even if he doesn't beat Conor, the Justin Gaethje rematch. Because Gaethje, I want to see the new Gaethje, the methodical, not just take 10 to land one Gaethje. I want to see the boxer Gaethje that can pick a shot rather than just swinging 10 shots and hoping that 2 land against Poirier. Because, their first fight was a war, and that was old Gaethje. Now, Poirier's improved as well, but I want to see that. I'd really want to see that fight again.
No, Justin Gaethje 2.0 is a scary prospect against anybody. He knows how to kind of dodge it to the inside. He knows what strikes he's looking for. He knows what works for him. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for lightweight. UFC 264, we're covering the Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor trilogy. We're going to be back next week to cover off the rest of the main card. We're doing the main event today. Well, let's head out of here. My name's Tim Wheaton. You can find me Tim Wheaton MMA on Twitter and Instagram. Frazer, I'm going to give you the last word here. Where can we find you? And we'll head out of here.
Yeah, I'm all over MMAsucker.com, of course. Post fairly regularly on there and do a lot of editing on there with all the guys' stuff. So, we're going to have lots of fight week content. It's a McGregor, like we say, it's a McGregor fight week. We're going to have staff picks. We're going to have previews for every main card fight. Probably have a few previews for ones to look out for on the prelims. And, it's an exciting time. Sean O'Malley hasn't got a fight yet. Who's, if anyone, going to stand in for for Lewis Smoker? So we were speaking before, we hope it's going to be Ricky Simone, but, Merab Dvalishvili, I think that's his name.
Nice job. Good job.
Offered to step in and then fight Marlon Moraes in September. Got Ray Borg asking for the fight as well. So, it's an exciting fight week going into it. So, we're going to be all over MMA Sucker all week. We've got a preview coming out as well for the main card. And, it's exciting times.
Perfect. Cheers, lads. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.